Hi, I'm Jake, aka TheBreakfast, with AYBOnline, with Fred from 3D Realms. And we're going to be talking about Bombshell and a few other things. So, Fred, why don't you tell me a little bit about Bombshell?
Yes. So Bombshell is an action adventure RPG. You play as the protagonist Shelley Harrison, who lost her arm doing something called the Washington Incident, and her arm was rebuilt using alien remnants technology. Um, we fast forward to present day. The Earth gets attacked by the very first alien attack on the world, and Bombshell decides to step back into action after her incident. And that's where the game starts. The president of the United States gets captured by the aliens and transferred through a portal to a galaxy far away. Shelley decides to jump through this portal and she ends up on the planet Chiron. And from there on, she goes on an intergalactic adventure, planet hopping through many different worlds and meeting many different alien species. And in the hunt for madman scientist Jadis Haskell, who purportedly is behind this attack. So that's the story.
All right, that sounds pretty interesting. So, with the gameplay, we were playing it 2 nights ago at the Tiny Build party hard release party, and there was a lot of different upgrades and stuff. So, what can you tell me about the gameplay of Bombshell?
So the unique thing about the gameplay is that even though it's isometric 3D top down, it feels like playing a first person shooter. We're known for making first person shooters, especially fast twitch first person shooters, and we wanted to keep that really reactive, fast paced nature of the game intact. So what we did with Bombshell was we originally designed the control scheme and the way she moves and the way you can jump and crouch and so on. We designed that to play exactly like a Twitch first-person shooter, exactly what you remember from Quake and Duke Nukem and Rise of the Triad and so on. And then we tried changing the camera and tried to tweak this so it became as fluent and as reactive as possible. The result is super, super nice. It's really, really fast-paced. It's really easy to control. And then the benefit here is that we can change the camera as we want, and the controls can still be universal. So we can go into third person or first person shooter mode in the game, and the controls will still be the same. So regardless of how the camera is positioned in the game, you have the same controls. So basically, we use that to our benefit in the game. We move the camera around according to the situation. So, for instance, if you go to a stationary turret, the camera moves behind her shoulder in Gears of War style, and then you basically control it like that.
Yeah.
So basically that's what we were aiming for in terms of the core gameplay, how it feels to play the game.
Okay, so it's top down, but it plays like a first person shooter.
Yeah.
So you have kind of like the shooter elements, but you also have the upgrading your character elements of something like Diablo or something like that. Okay, that's perfect. That's awesome. All right, so Interceptor developed the Rise of the Triad reboot. Frankly, I think it was amazing. The music is fantastic.
That's Andrew Holtzhold, our composer. He's incredible.
Yeah. So, what can you tell me about that experience of going from being huge 3D Realms fans to actually owning 3D Realms and being 3D Realms and working on these classic IPs?
It's a huge experience. I'm not only a Three Realms fan. The Three Realms is what defined me as a gamer. I I was not fortunate enough to have many video game consoles as a kid. I had an NES and then a PC. And when I was 5 years old, I think my dad got me these 10 floppy disk packages with Shara games. And these Shara games were always Apogee games.
Yeah.
Wolfenstein 3D, Duke Nukem, Commander Keen, and so on. So that's what I grew up with. I grew up as fans. The second we got internet in the house, I think I was like 8, 9 years old. The only thing I would do was to sit on the Three Realms forums and talk with other people about these games. I was making maps for Duke Nukem 3D. That was basically my life.
The built-in map editor was awesome.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So talking about these games and being a fan of these games was my life. It's the reason why I do what I do today. And then when we did Rise of the Triad, that was great, classic Apogee IP. And then when the opportunity presented itself that we could acquire 3D Realms, it was surrealistic because I've grown up with this company. I felt that this brand, this company, was a part of who I am as a person. So when we took over the company, I was completely honored, but I also felt extremely scared because now it's in our hands. It's in my hands to make sure that the 3D Realms gets rebranded, rebooted. So it feels like a new startup. It is basically a new startup. We have the original founder on board. We have a few of the original employees, and then a brand new range of great talent that we brought on board. And we're trying to bring back 3D Realms, and we think we found a great spot for 3D Realms in today's marketplace of publishers. We have something amazing to offer indie developers that is uncomparable to what others can offer them. So that's what we're trying to do now. We're trying to bring back 3D Realms as the publisher they were known as back in the 90s.
Oh, okay, that's really interesting to hear. So 3D Realms was really known for the shareware and like actually putting in a lot of ways other people's games out there as well as their own. So that's something that you're going to be looking into, is getting into kind of bringing back that shareware kind of aspect.
So what we're trying to do is bring back what 3D Realms originally stood for. Besides doing shareware, which was the precursor to demos, basically, they also known for investing in upcoming developers, but leaving the IP ownership by the developers and taking a very, very small royalty rate. Basically, that's what they did with the id Software. They invested in id Software, got the team together, and they made Commander Keen and Wolfenstein and so on. But id Software were the ones making the big bucks because of 3D Realms, or Apogee Software back then. The same happened with almost every game that was released by Apogee was independent developers, or what you would call indie developers today, but back in the early and mid-90s. They basically funded the games, they published them, distributed them, but the developers themselves had all the IP rights, they had the royalties and so on. So basically this model empowered the developers, and the 3D Realms brand was used to get the developers to a point they couldn't get to themselves. We want to try and bring that back. The only thing we do, besides doing the PR, marketing, distribution, and so on, and helping the game achieve its goal using our brand, is that we have a range of incredible legendary game designers and producers on board that worked on many of these games during the mid-90s to help with workshops, with advising, and so on, to make sure that these games become known as 3D Realms classics. Like whenever you mention a 3D Realms classic, if you play an old DOS game, you can instantly see, oh, all right, that's an Apogee 3D Realms game. Yeah. You can instantly see it on the quality, the humor, the art style, the sound, the music. The production quality is just a step higher than what you would usually expect. And that's what 3D Realms does. It's the same thing that we did with Max Payne, Prey as well, where we hired Human Head to that game for us.
Yeah, I love Human Head Studios.
Human Head, Chris Reinhardt, absolutely incredible team. Some of the best developers we've ever worked with. They are absolutely incredible. So that's what we're trying to bring back with 3D Realms. And I think it's like we have a number of games coming. We're going to announce next year. Incredible IPs. We're going to help boost them a lot. And I think that the 3D Realms brand will really, really help this new era of indie games reach a state that they usually wouldn't be able to if they were all on their own. So that's what we're trying to do with 3D Realms.
Okay, that's amazing. Wow. So one thing that you've also been doing is some of the classic 3D Realms titles have been given to other developers. I know Wacky Wheels right now, there's somebody working on something for Wacky Wheels, but there was also Shadow Warrior, which Shadow Warrior was amazing. Yeah. So are there any other 3D Realms classic titles or Apogee classic titles that are currently being worked on by outside developers?
So most of the Apogee and 3D Realms IPs are actually owned by the original developers. So we don't own those IPs. They like Wacky Wheels is owned by the Wacky Wheels developer creator.
Okay.
The same with the Shadow Warrior was one of the few that was actually fully owned by us. Yeah. We sold that to Devolver. They're doing an incredible job with Shadow Warrior. Shadow Warrior 2 is coming now. Flying Wild Hog is doing an incredible job on that. We have a few other games. So many of these deals were made before we took over 3D Realms. So there's a new Wacky Wheels coming out. There's a spiritual successor to Raptor called Velociraptor that was just announced. Really, really cool project as well. Nice. Then we have a few more that we're working on behind the scenes. A lot of great IP. If you think back to the mid-90s, and you look at the console space, you had the NES, the Super NES, the Sega Genesis. You have all these classic characters, Sonic the Hedgehog, Super Mario. On PC, the only competitors to that was Commander Keen, Wolfenstein, the Wacky Wheels game. You had these characters. But since then, none of these characters were used for anything. They basically died out. Cosmo, for instance, all these characters basically died because they never made any sequels, they were never made into ongoing IPs and brands. And I think we have a great opportunity to try and do that now, bringing back all these classic games, because this is an era that people grew up with, but that era just disappeared out of nowhere. Absolutely. Where the console era continued. You had all the Mario sequels, Sonic sequels, and today these are great recognizable brands, while these PC brands are great and recognizable for those who grew up with them, but new gamers don't know anything about them. So that's what we want to try and bring back with this.
That's amazing. Hearing that it's a great return to like the '90s era, the golden era of PC gaming. That's big for us running the LAN party. So that's huge. All right. So to bring it back to Bombshell,
Yeah.
one thing that has been a pet peeve of mine in new game development is that people have gotten really boring with games with weapon design.
Yeah.
Yes, the other night when we were watching Bombshell, we saw some absolutely crazy creative weapons, some lightning guns. There was something that resembled the cerebral bore from Turok. So, is there any other kind of surprises that you have in store that you can kind of tell us a little bit about or hint at here?
Oh, there's a lot of surprises. I'd say one of my favorite is there's a special weapon called the confusion bombs, and they can only be used by detaching your arm Amiga. It turns into an AI. Then you can upgrade it so you can take control of it. And once you've upgrade the taking control upgrade, so you can move around with Amiga separately, you can upgrade that further. So Amiga also has its own weapon set, and one of those is the confusion bomb. So basically, what you can do is you detach Amiga, you take control of Amiga, you run out, you can place this bomb on the ground, run back, jump on up back on Bombshell, and when enemies near this bomb, it will explode and basically turn all the enemies into your allies, and they'll basically be on your team for a limited amount of time. It's a super strategic weapon. It's absolutely hilarious to use. Another favorite is the Electropocalypse. I think I showed you guys that.
Yeah, we saw that one.
You basically make like a beacon that you can control, and once you set the beacon, you have these crazy lightning strikes come from outer space and hit everywhere, and everyone explodes. It's super ridiculous. It's really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. Well, I'm definitely looking forward to Bombshell. So, when is Bombshell due for release?
So we don't have an exact date yet. Around 3 months from now is our time frame. Definitely 2015. So keep an eye out for it. It's very soon. It's very close.
Awesome. All right. Well, this has been a look at the history of 3D Realms and Interceptor. And thank you, Fred, for your time. It's been
thank you so much.
absolutely amazing. And everybody, take a look at Bombshell. And thank you very much.